Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Talk of Champions, powered by our friends at RiverLand Roofing. I'm Billy Embody. Fall camp opens this week for Ole Miss, and the Rebels get a big commitment on Friday and more recruiting news ahead as August is almost here for us as training camp will get underway for Lane Kiffin and co. We'll talk about that and be joined by On3's JD PicKell, as well as Brian Hadad of SuperTalk, Mississippi. All that and more coming up on this edition of Talk of Champions.
Protecting homes and businesses from the whims of nature, you need more than just quality materials. You require RiverLand Roofing. Licensed, insured, and certified, RiverLand Roofing offers not only the assurance of excellence, but a tailored approach to your unique structural needs and budget. To learn more about what RiverLand Roofing can do for you and the community, call them at 662-644-4297 or visit riverlandroofing.com.
You're locked into Talk of Champions, an Ole Miss podcast powered by RiverLand Roofing and featuring Ben Garrett and Billy Embody of Rebel Grove.
That's right. Happy Monday. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us on Talk of Champions. This is a big week for Ole Miss as Lane Kiffin and company get back at it in Oxford on the practice field. Players report on Monday, and then we will have practice access as well as Lane Kiffin and some players hitting the podium. I'm Billy Embody. This is Talk of Champions. We're presented by our friends at RiverLand Roofing, riverlandroofing.com, and text or call them 662-644-4297 for all your roofing needs. They're doing a ton in the Ole Miss NIL space as well and helping us out on a lot of content. The RiverLand Roofing Studios in Oxford, as well as, of course, the New Albany division. Ben Garrett getting ready for fall camp, and Jake Thompson, Chuck Rounsville as well getting ready to go out there to practice. We'll have all that coverage and more on the site. Subscribe for just $1 for your first week. Practices open-ish. We're going to get our few minutes to watch Ole Miss play as well as or practice, I should say, as well as getting back to it next week when they'll be in full pads. We'll get Tuesday and Friday, and that'll include press conferences as well. So a lot coming on the site, so make sure you're there for it as we continue to inch closer to college football season. But Ole Miss football is inching closer to the end of the summer, and that means some key decisions are still coming down the pipeline on the recruiting front. But they did get good news Friday night out of the Atlanta area as Nascar McCoy announced his decision for Ole Miss. The Rebels beat out the likes of Georgia, Miami, Michigan, and others for the 3-star safety out of Buford High School, one of the best high school programs in the entire country. And you could see there, if you're watching on our YouTube channel, that, he is a high 3-star and somebody that I think has a lot of upside. And at the same time, I think he's a prospect that has gotten plenty of exposure to evaluators. And, sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's a bad thing. But, when it comes to NASCAR, and his real name is Nasir, so there is that, but he goes by NASCAR, and he's played a lot of high-level football games. And sometimes when that happens and you get so many eyes on him or on a prospect, I think sometimes maybe evaluators can kind of question themselves, but or question a prospect a little bit more because they've seen him so much and there's so many snaps out there. But Ole Miss really likes his potential, and there's a lot to be said for being able to go into the state of Georgia and grab a polished football player who at the same time I think could develop a little bit more physically as he gets into a college program. And it seems like he's a good athlete, just as a baseline for the next level. And that's one of the things that Ole Miss really likes to check their boxes on as far as being a good athlete and being a willing tackler in the safety position, and also potentially having a little bit of position versatility. He's not the biggest guy in the world, so you could consider him maybe as a corner, but really he's going to play safety at Ole Miss. And again, this is a part of a secondary class now that is, as it stands right now, I would say complete. I don't necessarily think that they would turn anyone away, like a Tylen Wilson who just committed to A&M, or if somehow this fall they kind of got back into it with a Braylon Womack, guys like that who are high-end prospects. But as of right now, I would say the secondary class appears to be complete. You've got Braylon Williams and Iverson McCoy from Tupelo. You added Jet Goldsberry into the mix, and you added, of course, 4-star safety Craig Tutt just a week before NASCAR announced his decision. And I think this senior year for NASCAR is going to be an opportunity to put together some really nice film. Again, Buford's one of the top programs in the entire country, just nationally. I mean, they've just got a stacked roster, and will play on a national stage a number of times. And so I'm intrigued to watch him and see how his senior season plays out. But this was a top target for Ole Miss. Wes Neighbors and that entire defensive staff were working hard to get this one across the finish line, and they did. And that has put Ole Miss comfortably in the top 25 classes, sitting at 19th nationally in the Rivals team rankings. So a good position to be in for Ole Miss. They do have another decision coming down the pipeline later this week, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But do also want to remind you about our friend Andy Ludicky at My Perfect Franchise, myperfectfranchise.net. Give him a call, 404-973-9901, or email him, Andy, A-N-D-Y, at myperfectfranchise.net. He could walk you through the franchise ownership world and share with you what your options are based on your financial needs, the time you can commit to it, what your ultimate goals are as well. Are you trying to leave your corporate job for the American dream of business ownership, or are you looking at more of a side hustle, want to make some money, maybe leave it to your kids to run, or you have kids who are entering the business world and maybe it's a way for you guys to work together? Andy Ludicky is a franchise consultant, and his services are 100% free. And if he does contract a franchise with you, he will donate the money back to, or some of the money, he'll make a donation to the Grove Collective. So keep that in mind as well when talking to Andy Ludicky of myperfectfranchise.net. He's been a longtime sponsor. We appreciate all of his help to us at Talk of Champions. Ole Miss isn't done as the season approaches. There are more commitments on the way. 3 huge ones this week and next. Jace Matthews, the 4-star wide receiver out of the state of Mississippi, does appear set to make his decision on August 8th. And he is somebody that right now trending to go out of state. And we see this a lot, in this top 10 of Mississippi, being players that are not going to end up leaving the summer, at least, committed to the Rebels. So that will be something that as the season goes along, it'll be a chance for Ole Miss to try and make a move in this recruitment to get him back on campus, to see what the financial demands are or where he could fit in rev share wise. And I think the wide receiver position, when you look at having Corey Barber, Jamison Powell, and I'm missing one, or maybe I'm not here, just off the top of my head, but this is a position that Ole Miss, I think, is in the world of, I think this is important, we've kind of talked about it on the podcast before, in the world of rev share and having to commit rev share to players, and also packaging that up with NIL. Jace Matthews, Tristan Keys, we've seen it with some of these bigger name prospects in the state of Mississippi just as a whole. Ole Miss hasn't been able to really get any of them outside of Demarius Yates. They've won some competitive battles, guys like Braylon Williams, Iverson McCoy, players like that. But Ole Miss is going to have a handful of top wide receivers coming back next year, as well as already having Caleb Cunningham, who they're going to end up having to retain after the season, I'm sure, and it could be a pretty penny type of situation. So for bigger receivers, for outside receivers, it is something that I think in the state of Mississippi this year has not gone Ole Miss's way. Jaquaden Guilford out of the Midwest did not go Ole Miss's way in the end. And Xavier McDonald, who's, a 4-star prospect, nice player, but definitely more of a long-term project, ends up going to Sacramento State. And maybe that changes down the line, but these top receivers, and Jace Matthews and Tristan Keys are stellar. They are going to command a lot of money. And we've seen Ole Miss, we've seen Mississippi State even on these in-state kids just kind of wait around. But especially Ole Miss, like we saw with Caleb Cunningham last cycle, they've been waiting to make their late push, and they will continue to do that. They will continue to try and get these top Mississippi players. They want that to be a thing, that the best stay in the SIP, so to speak. And Jace Matthews will continue to be recruited heavily by Ole Miss. So we'll watch this one down the line. There's still, well over a week from his decision, August 8th, I believe. And Ole Miss will try to make a move late, I'm sure, or see if anything's changed, and they'll go from there. But right now, Auburn has a lot of the buzz around his recruitment. And, that's something that for Ole Miss fans is tough to stomach. Auburn's making, I don't want to say making a late push, because if you kind of read the tea leaves, yes, LSU, A&M have kind of gotten talked up more over the course of the summer. But man, when Auburn was taking it on the chin in recruiting, I think one of their recruiting directors or staffers said it's a marathon, not a sprint, or something like that. And it's almost like it was directed at Jace Matthews. So he did receive a prediction from Jeffrey Lee, who covers Auburn, and we'll see if that holds true. And Auburn does make a move, make a splash to end the summer with a Jace Matthews. But positions that have money committed to them for next season have really been the positions that Ole Miss, I would say, has struggled with, arguably, this cycle. We see the quarterback position kind of long-term, at least, have options that they've brought in from the transfer portal. I think that maybe ended up hurting them. The money situation that they are going to probably have to deliver to Austin Simmons after this season is going to be something that's going to have to happen. So all of that kind of factors in with this. I do think there's things that clearly Ole Miss could have done better in some of these recruitments. But with Jace Matthews, it is one that, I think it's just getting to be a lot of money, and Ole Miss would rather play that battle or face that battle later in the recruiting process and see if they could change things. So we're already seeing some flips at the end of the summer after guys had already committed this summer to a program. And part of that is revenue share contracts are going out August 1st. So kids are starting to be informed of what they can make, if that is a big factor for them, and they are involved in those discussions. And with that, then they can say, whoa, all right, that place I'm committed to, this is not what I expected. So we've seen some movement already, and that's something to track. And I'm going to be reaching out to, a lot of the commits at Ole Miss and not make sure, but, check and see if they're locked in and things like that. Because, in this day and age where free agency, so to speak, as Lane Kiffin calls it, doesn't have a set end, which in my opinion, and I know some college coaches are in favor of this, man, just if you're going to commit this money and you're going to do this and you're going to do that, the day they can receive the contracts, that's when they should be able to sign. Or they can sign at any point. They could commit and not sign, and then the schools know, okay, all right, he's a little, someone we're going to have to watch, or, he's definitely maybe playing us a little bit, or what have you. But if you can sign your contract starting June 1st or even May 1st, then that's a situation where schools don't have to worry. So I'd like to see a little bit of a movement there one way or the other. Either you can sign a contract whenever, or you can just kind of lock in a little bit more. I would think we see a little bit of settling around the college football recruiting world, or kids will wait all the way until December to commit or do this or do that. Because on the flip side of that, if you commit and you don't sign, schools are going to know, hey, we've got to keep recruiting others, or we've got to prepare for the reality that they may decommit. But one prospect that probably all cycle is probably going to, as of now, be the most disappointing is Deuce Gerald's out of the Peach State Ole Miss legacy. Deuce is somebody that entering the summer, Ole Miss felt they were right in position for this one. And as of right now, you're looking at a prospect that's going to go all the way from Peach State to Oregon as of now. So that is somebody that is going to be closely watched over the course of the season, as he does have a lot of ties to Ole Miss, so it wouldn't be shocking to see him get back for a game. But as of right now, it seems like Oregon and LSU are battling that one out as we go towards his Friday commitment date. So again, in Ole Miss legacy, looking like he's not in the state of Mississippi, but also been a big target. Seems like as of now, Oregon has a lot of confidence to get him done. And that's something to know, but it's also worth noting that, again, Ole Miss is going to have to retain a lot of this defensive line. It seems like that is coming into this season that does have a lot of talent that could very well be retained after this season. So that's worth noting as you go through it. Now, there's a lot of there's a lot of thought that, I mean, that's an excuse, but it's also the reality. They think they're going to have to pay William Eccles a ton of money to come back just because he's going to earn it, not because he's going to, extort them or, going to be whatever. Jam Brown is another one who's on the rise. And then you've got, guys like Prince Will, Umanmielen, Deshaun Womack, Cam Franklin, a bunch of other players that could very well pan out and be difference makers for this team. So there is a lot of money that's going to be needed to retain that. And at the same time, they've done a nice job getting guys like Carmelo Reed, Landon Barnes. I would argue, to kind of close this out before we preview the decision that's coming on Friday, the last commitment. I would argue that Ole Miss has struggled to go into the state of Mississippi or recruit the state of Mississippi. And I don't want to say it, there's no other way to say it, but I think Mississippi recruits are, from my experience, much more not driven by money, but where they stand kind of nationally, money is a huge factor. I think when you look at some of the guys that Ole Miss has gotten, as well as where they're from, they've gone out of state because, look, Landon Barnes, they found a guy who's playing at a powerhouse program in Duncanville, Texas, top 100 prospect, really likes Randall Joyner, and Ole Miss put together a good situation for him as well. And I think there's an appearance that Mississippi is just a much more money-driven situation. So if an LSU or an Auburn or an A&M are going to go big and they're going to kind of take their pick around the country, they're going to go bigger for the players that just, it seems like they might be able to have more success doing that. I know that's kind of a roundabout way for talking about it. And at the same time, Ole Miss feels they can get better value for the money by going out of state in some of these situations. Jet Goldsberry is one. There are others. Isaiah Williams is one. You look at TJ White's recruitment, one of the top linebackers in the country, one of the best players in Mississippi this cycle. And he never, from what I understand, never made his way back to Ole Miss this spring. And maybe that was because they already knew that they weren't going to be wasting Ole Miss's time because the money elsewhere was going to be better. And Ole Miss doesn't want to spend a ton of money on unproven talent. And you can call it cope, you can call it excuses, you can call it reasons, you can call it whatever, but that's kind of the reality nowadays when you're managing a cap. Ole Miss loses 5 linebackers next cycle. Who does Pete Golding need to step in right away and play some serious snaps? He's going to need a Jacoby Hobson to step up in his second year on the program, but he's also going to need to sign an instant impact linebacker like they have committed in Isaiah Williams out of the state of Florida. They might feel like the value is better there. So a really intriguing world that we're all entering and now having to navigate. And this is the first year of rev share and rev share contracts going out to high school prospects, which has made it all interesting and I would say complicated to track. But the good news for Ole Miss is they've targeted one of the top linebackers in the country to pair with an Isaiah Williams, and he's been their top guy for a long time now. And that's Anthony Davis out of Grayson High School in the Peach State. And somebody that Ole Miss has really liked a lot and has been able to get in prime position. Alabama and Auburn have kind of gone other directions in their linebacker recruiting, but Michigan is still pushing in a big way here. I like him as kind of a will linebacker who's instinctual, can almost play a little bit of safety almost. If you look at him kind of on this tape, if you're watching on YouTube, just seems like a kind of versatile safety box linebacker type. And Ole Miss likes him a lot as the will linebacker. and a player that they've prioritized over other players that they've been recruiting, like a Rodney Colton, who they weren't going to spend much money on. They also kind of feel the same about a Braylon Outlaw, the Pike Road, Alabama prospect who's committed to Tennessee. And those players, those two in particular, maybe they come back around and visit Ole Miss again. Maybe the money changes in some of these situations, but Ole Miss seems primed to land him on Friday as of now. So he's somebody we're watching very closely as he gets closer to making his final decision, which over the course of summer, he's really been projected to Ole Miss for quite some time now. He's on the cusp of being a 4-star prospect on Rivals. He is a Rivals industry ranking 4-star prospect, top 20 linebacker nationally, top 300 prospect in the country. And I think somebody that, again, Ole Miss feels really strongly about, and we'll see kind of how things go over the final week. I know Michigan's been making it interesting, and that's something that I don't think Ole Miss is going to let get in the way here, as Pete Golding has spent a lot of time recruiting Anthony Davis, and it seems like they're going to win out in this recruitment as of now, and that would put the cap, so to speak, on the linebacker position. They'll look for somebody else to add, whether it be JUCO, whether it be transfer, whether it be high school. But out of the high school ranks, they're not going to spend more money, in my opinion, because Isaiah Williams is probably going to get interesting. He's been committed to, I think, a half dozen schools now, and they're going to have to make sure, because they've invested so much time and energy in him, that they don't let him get away. So the linebacker position long-term is looking to be in really good shape. When you talk about Jacoby Hobson and some of these other guys they've landed in 25, and then if they can hold on to Isaiah Williams and Anthony Davis, they'll be in even better shape. So really strong position there for Ole Miss as they look to close out the summer strong with a commitment that would further solidify them into the top 20 and feel good about everything you kind of have outside of offensive line leaving the summer. So that decision coming down on Friday, and we'll be there to track it all for you at rebelgrove.com. Sign up for just $1 for your first week. We appreciate our friends at RiverLand Roofing for supporting us. And of course, Andy Ludicky, My Perfect Franchise. Before we go to our interviews with JD PicKell and Brian Hadad, we are going to remind you guys again, RiverLand Roofing, 662-644-4297, and reach out to Andy Ludicky at myperfectfranchise.net, 404-973-9901. Looking forward to getting back to fall camp. I dropped a story on Rebel Grove this morning, picking out 5 true freshmen I'm watching. And as we talked about the defensive line with Deuce Geralds, I also think Anthony Maddox is going to be somebody who could earn himself some snaps in fall camp. When Akilo Stone transferred out, that left kind of that depth piece defensive tackle spot open where he's not going to be a starter, but he's going to have some snaps available. And Ole Miss would love to see Andrew Maddox step up. So he's one of the 5 that I picked if you want to check out the story. And also check out our friends at College Corner. The link is in our comment section bio of this episode, wherever you catch it at, and make sure you click that link to help us out. And whether you check out their locations across Mississippi in person or order online, help us out. Click that link when you do. Pick up the latest and greatest swag for your Ole Miss football season and beyond. Get the fresh stuff they have coming in there all the time before the season begins. So all their new stuff is starting to roll in, and we're excited to also say we're going to be doing something August 13th at the College Corner location in Oxford. So be on the lookout for more information around that. Going to be exciting. We're going to go live. We're going to have some food there, and hopefully get some players out of fall camp for just a few minutes to talk. But if not, we will be there just kind of having a good time over there at College Corner in Oxford. So we appreciate Scott and his entire crew for supporting us as well. So make sure you check out College Corner and their entire selection, whether it be online or in person. So without any further ado, we go to our interview with On3's JD PicKell of the Hard Count, and then do a quick interview with Brian Hadad right before he had to run away to interview Blake Shapen of Mississippi State, and close out with that one just because, man, if you were worried about Mississippi State going into the season as an Ole Miss fan, you shouldn't really have to think about them really making some waves this season as it appears. They got to play the games, but it's tough right there in Starkville. So hope you guys enjoy our interview with JD PicKell. Breaks down the SEC, Ole Miss, and more. And then, throw it to Brian Hadad. So thanks for listening to this edition of Talk of Champions and enjoy our interviews. We will have all sorts of content on Rebel Grove this week, so make sure you check us out. And we'll be back Tuesday afternoon for takeaways from Ole Miss's first day on the practice field in Lane Kiffin's press conference. So we'll catch you next time on Talk of Champions. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for listening, everyone. Well, welcome back to Talk of Champions. Really excited for this interview or just chat with one of our own, JD PicKell. Thanks for stopping by.
Man, just a couple guys talking ball. I appreciate you having me on. This is a blast, and it's fun to be here at the unofficial official kick to the 2025 season, which is crazy.
Yeah.
It feels like the game was just happening here in Atlanta between Ohio State and Notre Dame, and now we're running it back. Awesome.
I enjoy the fact that you talk about programs. And you stick to ball for the most part, and it's lost a lot at SEC Media Days with rev share, playoff, structure, all of those things. What is your view of the SEC going into this season? Let's jump right in.
Yeah, well, I mean, I appreciate you saying that at the top. A lot of it is I'm not necessarily smart enough to understand all of it. I say, hey, Pete Nakos, what does this mean? Let's talk about this. Make me smarter. But when it comes to the SEC, doesn't it feel like it's the most wide open it's been? I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time it was this wide open. Like this many different starting quarterbacks that are going to be new. The most proven commodities are at LSU and South Carolina. And LSU, everyone's wondering if they're going to finally be that team that gets back to, a tier 1 status. So I think the first thought, someone asked me yesterday, this is the year of blank in the SEC. And I said uncertainty because that's kind of how it feels.
And you brought up a good point on LSU with Garrett Nussmeier, South Carolina with Lenora Sellers. But the bigger storyline, arguably, in my opinion, is this, and it involves Ole Miss too, these kind of highly decorated quarterbacks that are now getting their full time in the spotlight. We saw Arch Mania yesterday. We'll see DJ Lagway eventually, become a bigger talking point this week as well. But Austin Simmons is hanging around in that discussion as somebody that is now in a position to step into a starting role, not a transfer, homegrown talent. That is, quite a unique story. But what do you make of all of these young quarterbacks, the hype around them? Because as a former quarterback, not somebody who did it at a high level.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, a little walk-on at SMU.
That's more than a little, man. Yeah. I'm talking about a playoff team.
Yeah.
Let's go. That's cool. I did not know that.
Now,
I did not know that.
Say playoff team.
That's very cool.
Jude
okay.
Jones,
I cut you off, though. I apologize. You asked a good question.
I struggle with the crowning of quarterbacks before the season, I guess. So unpack that a little bit from your angle on what you think.
I think you hit it on the money. I think some of that is the social media age that we're in, especially in our space. It's very important to break through with a controversial take, or I say it's important. I say it's important in the eyes of a lot of other people when it comes to
getting
this
some
business.
Eyes on.
Yeah. I mean, if you say something crazy, people are like, wow, that guy just called Austin Simmons the greatest quarterback of all time. He hasn't really been the guy yet. I'm going to go ahead and watch that, click that, like that, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think some of it is the victim of where we are in the media space. I think also, to be real, some of it is we've seen in modern college football, some of these young guys break through and be awesome. 100%. Like Johnny Manziel, Jameis Winston, Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, I know Cam Newton wasn't a freshman, but he really only got 1 year of him, and he was new to the scene. So I think some of that maybe subconsciously or consciously we say, okay, it's been done before, but we
get out ahead of it.
We also forget there is one Johnny Manziel. There is one Jameis Winston, one Cam Newton, one Tua Tagovailoa. So I think there's a lot of that. I think the interesting thing about this year is there's so many of these new quarterbacks at schools with coaches that kind of pride themselves on being offensive / quarterback guys, like Sark and Arch Manning, Kalen DeBoer's the QB whisperer, Oklahoma, Ole Miss. There's a lot there. So kind of going to test the chops development wise of some of these play callers.
Yeah, no question. And as you look at the SEC, do you have an early thought on where the league stands? Who maybe the couple that you're watching?
Not super popular probably on the Talk of Champions, to be honest. I need someone to yank me off the ledge of picking LSU to win the league. I might pick LSU to win the whole thing, Billy. Wow. Going back to quarterbacks. They did a lot in the portal. Yeah. I don't know how you feel about this or how the board feels about this, but I have a hard time thinking BK is the problem. I understand he hasn't won the big one, and there's been different shortcomings for his teams over the course of the last couple of years, but I'm He's coached 20 years and won 70% of his games.
He's always going to have a high floor.
Always a high floor, and had a quarterback in the SEC with going back to our conversation around like the newness of the position. LSU has the most proven commodity in all of college football at that position for my money. I mean, depending on how you feel about Drew Aller at Penn State, and I would say put Garrett Nussmeier ahead of him right now, from what we know. So that paired with the portal, paired with the continuity on the staff, like I feel like I know what I'm getting in LSU, so I'll probably pick them right now to win the league.
Man, I think this is one of those years that South Carolina maybe has that opportunity to capitalize on all this change, all this. Like, I'm not a Gunnar Stockton guy. I don't know. I just think there's so many different ways that this thing could go. It would be interesting to see if we see a move away this season, even if it's for a brief moment, away from the traditional powers of the SEC that get there.
And I think we talk. No, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I mean, I think even we look at the playoff, the way that thing's expanding, like when you get into the 12-team playoff, or if it goes to 14, 16, whatever, I think we're seeing the quarterback position continue to have a greater emphasis in the sense that when you get to that first round game or that second round game, you're playing probably a similar caliber roster. Like at that point, you wonder how many 5-stars are really making the difference versus how many 5-stars they have. So the way that I'm processing that is, okay, well, who do you have at quarterback on that day? Which was a big reason why I think South Carolina fans are like, just get us in. Just get us in. Let 16 do what he's doing right now.
He's
same thing for Miami. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting conversation at that position.
When you look at what Lane Kiffin's been able to do at Ole Miss, as a guy who, has, like we talked about earlier, kind of get some intrigue. You got to like what Lane brings to the table from a little bit of trolling, some little controversy.
I love it. I think it's awesome. Like I think just as a competitor, you kind of appreciate the lack of give a fudge. You know what I mean? Like I think we all kind of aspire to be kind of like Lane Kiffin in our own minds. Like I'm going to beat to my own drum, say what you want to say. I'm going to say what I want to say. I'm going to do me and kind of be true to myself. And I think he's great for college football, right? He's so similar to Nick Saban, it sounds like, in the way that he operates, but at the exact same time, the anti-Saban on the social media front with the media. And I think he fits perfect for Ole Miss. Like, I know he's always going to be thrown in there whenever a big job becomes available, whether it's Bama, Auburn, whatever. But I'm like, man, Ole Miss seems to have embraced everything that comes with him. I think it's a great fit. I love it.
And he's embracing it back. I mean, he's really settled in there well. I think, one day maybe he ends up trying his luck at the NFL again. I think this whole roster management thing is going to really end up showing what coaches really want to coach in college environments and quite frankly put up with all that we're putting up with right now. And I think he's settled in there where there shouldn't be much concern there, but also I think if he ever did leave, it would be for the NFL. That's just my take.
Makes a lot of sense. If you were,
because it's so like in 10-win seasons last 4 years, like it seems like every quarterback that plugs in is successful.
Roster turning over every year.
Yeah, it's just rolling kind of.
You would think if there was a person making NFL decisions and picking a college coach saying, hey, do you understand what comes with this transition from a roster level? You'd be like, Lane Kiffin is a yes with flying colors. Right?
And he's continuously, built great offenses, and that's kind of look at the Sean McVays, you look at the blanking on his name.
I don't even know I can help you. Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell, I do know that.
I do know that. Yeah, play callers in the NFL and keeping it rolling. So
I hope he doesn't though. Like selfishly, I hope he stays forever.
Football. Yeah, I mean, in our side of it with the fan sites, of course, you either want to have your program that you cover win a national championship, or you want them to tank and you see a coaching change.
Yeah, sure.
So,
no in between.
Yeah, there's no in between. And I think Ole Miss has one of those opportunities to win a national championship at some point.
Yeah.
They keep playing the defense the way that they have under Pete Golding. Austin Simmons, man, he was so impressive this week.
Oh.
I don't know if you got much time or saw him much, but for 19 years old, college degree and all that.
What's up with that? So he enrolled at like what, 17?
Yeah, maybe 16.
I make a joke on our show.
Just before me, getting there or whatever, really watching it, but he reclassed 2 years.
I knew he reclassed pretty early, but like to have a college degree at 19, I keep making a joke. I change the age every time we talk about it on our show about what age you graduated at. I think I said 14 most recently, but it's really impressive. That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't get a ton of time around him this week. but I would say I am a happily married man. I have a daughter at home, but I fell in love with Austin Simmons in a platonic sense. That one drive against Georgia,
Yep.
I know we've talked about it before, but like that was so impressive. The trust that Kiffin had in him to say, gross game. Georgia got NFL draft picks on that side of the football on the, and like Austin, we're not going to put the governor on the offense at all. Like, go freaking sling it, man. And he did, and it was awesome. And I'm like, okay, Austin Simmons, I'm in.
College football playoff is expanded now, to 12, and it's going into the second year of that. But early Final Four pick, do you have any of that for us?
Early Final Four pick. I think Clemson's a really safe bet right now. I think they might be the most talented team in the country from what we know about them.
Especially top-end talent. A
lot of first-round guys.
You would five guys, I think.
I think McShay, I saw he had like 4 in the top 10. And I was like, okay, Clemson. Okay, yeah. I'm here for that, the Roy Bus. So it's funny. I mean, it's not – I wouldn't predict we get a rematch of week 1 in the national title, but I could see it happening. So I think we'll have Clemson. I think we'll have LSU. Gosh, subject to change. I'll say Texas, Ohio State. I still think you have
safer bets.
And I do think with how open the season feels, if you get one of those teams or both those teams in the 12-team dance, like we saw Ohio State crumble against Michigan last year. Yeah. Found the on switch, super talented. And they're not as talented as last year, but if Julian saying clicks by December, same deal with Arch. I feel like those rosters will find their potential.
Awesome. Well, thanks for spending so much time with us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely,
busy man.
No,
JD
likewise.
PicKell, everyone.
Appreciate you. Thanks so much, Billy.
Welcome back to Talk of Champions. Really pumped up about our next guest. Good old-fashioned in-state Egg Bowl guest here.
You're not Ben Garrett. What's going on here? I was invited to do Talk of Champions. Where's my buddy? Are we not going to talk wrestling?
No, he's going to have you on another time. But SuperTalk Mississippi's Brian Hadad. Look, catching up with you on Mississippi State Day. You're about to catch up with Blake Shapen, quarterback of the Bulldogs. Let's start there. What does he bring to the table this season? What's the goal for him? Because last year obviously was tough sledding just overall in start.
I mean, I think the easy goal to say is just to be healthy and to give you 12 games as the starting quarterback for Mississippi State. And I hope that's going to be the case for him. I talked to him. I had the chance to talk to him earlier this year. And he talked about changing his mindset about the way he plays football. And, instead of diving into a tackle, maybe I can duck out of bounds here and we'll get the first down on the next play. Or, do I really need this extra yard here? I can just slide. My question with that is, anybody who's ever played football knows, when the whistle blows and that mentality takes over and you've played a certain way your whole life, how do you do that? So, State at the very least has some talent in the quarterback room and they'll be okay. Well, it's kind of like they were a year ago. Van Buren as a freshman was fine. But a healthy Shapen can be a difference maker for Mississippi State. It's not the difference between, making the playoff or not, obviously, but it can be the difference between having some opportunities to win some games and not. That would have been the case last year. I think if Shapen is healthy, State probably finds a way to win a couple more games.
What's the state of the program?
Yeah, I mean, I get your question. It feels like it's very generic, but it's not.
Yeah.
When you look at State's athletic department, they're having a lot of success. In basketball, both teams made the tournament. Obviously, with baseball, bringing in Brian O'Connor's got a lot of juice. Your Olympic programs are doing very well. But as we all know, football is what drives the wagon, especially here in the state of Mississippi and in the SEC. And when you go 2-10, it doesn't really matter what State could have been a Final Four team in basketball and made the College World Series. People look at you different.
Sour milk in the cereal.
Exactly.
Everything. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just a question of getting some success. And this year's going to be tough because your schedule's very tough. I know you're in the SEC and your schedule's tough every year, but when you look at your 7 home games and 4 of them are against college football playoff teams and another one is against Ole Miss, who was just on the verge of making the college football playoff. I mean, that is one thing I like to say is that there's a difference between excuses and reasons.
Yeah.
Like you can make excuses, but State not being good this year, the reason is they play an incredibly difficult schedule and they just aren't as talented as those teams. There's a path to going 6-6, but everything kind of has to break right for them.
Yep.
If they could do that, though, it would be massive and get some momentum, much needed momentum into this program.
I was going to say Jeff Lebby needs that. He needs some of those things to go his way, just to at least tee up any sort of opportunity that he may have to be successful over there in Starkville. What's the buzz around recruiting there as well? Has that been something that you've seen some success or not really? Or
it's been pretty rough. That for Mississippi State in terms of, you think about and Ole Miss hasn't been great this year in state. Like all the top kids in state seem hell bent on going out of state this year. I think the best player state has committed in state is JJ Hill, the running back from Tupelo, but he is not highly rated. That's a guy I've seen play, and I was just like, no, he can play. I think he's underrated. But, they're going to miss out on there's some great wide receivers this year. They're not going to get those guys. State's having trouble getting visits right now, let alone commitments and things of that nature. So, and that's just because you went 2-10 last year. You've got to show what they call, proof of concept?
Yeah.
That, Lebby has got to show that he can win and he can get kids to the next level. And when you have a first-time head coach and a first-time defensive coordinator, guys aren't going to stake their careers on that. Even in the transfer portal year, why waste a year?
Yep.
So if State's much better this year, you could see maybe some flips towards the end of the year. But from a recruiting perspective right now, State is just trying to find its way, it feels like.
I'll leave you to this because I know you got to go interview Blake Shapen right now. Record prediction. So not even go into it if you don't want to, but record prediction.
4-8.
Okay.
Probably where I am. I think they can win 3 of the 4 non-conference games. I think they'll get 1 in the SEC, maybe at Arkansas.
Yeah.
But 4-8, there's a path to 6-6.
Yeah.
But there's also a path to 2-10, and then we have to have some difficult conversations after the Egg Bowl.
Yeah. Well, if you're an Ole Miss fan listening, this is Brian Hadad.
They know who I am.
SuperTalk Mississippi. He's pumping you up about how bad the Bulldogs are right now. But we got to let you go, buddy.
Thanks, man.
Thanks so much for the time.